I used to babysit a lot when I was in college, mostly for extra money. One night, this family contacted me last minute saying their regular babysitter canceled, and they desperately needed someone for a few hours. The pay was insanely good, like suspiciously good. But I was broke, so I accepted it. The house was about 40 minutes away in a really wealthy neighborhood. Huge homes, empty streets, almost no cars outside. When I got there, the parents already seemed in a rush. The mom barely explained anything. She just said their son was asleep upstairs and I probably wouldn't even need to do anything. Then, right before leaving, the dad told me something weird. He said, "If you hear knocking from the back door, ignore it." I laughed a little because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He just stared at me for a second and said, "Seriously, don't open it." Then they left. At first, everything was normal. The house was quiet. I watched TV in the living room for maybe an hour. Then around midnight, I heard it, 3 knocks, from the back sliding glass door. Talk, talk, talk. I immediately muted the TV and just listened. Nothing. I told myself it was probably tree branches or something. Then it happened again, louder this time. Talk, talk, talk. I turned toward the glass door but couldn't really see outside because the backyard was completely dark. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered it thinking maybe it was the parents. It was the dad. The second I picked up, he asked, "Did you check the back door?" I said no. Then he said something that made me feel instantly sick. He said, "Good, because somebody's been doing that for weeks." I remember just sitting there frozen while he explained. Apparently late at night, someone had been coming into their backyard and knocking on the glass door. Always 3 knocks. Never speaking. Never trying to break in. Just knocking. I asked if they'd called the police. He said they had. Multiple times. But nobody was ever there when police arrived. And then, while I was still on the phone with him, the knocking happened again. This time right behind me, 3 slow knocks against the glass. I turned around so fast my heart almost stopped. There was a man standing outside, tall, wearing dark clothes. I couldn't see his face clearly because the backyard lights were off, but I could see he was smiling. The dad immediately started yelling through the phone, "Go upstairs, lock yourself in the bathroom right now." I ran upstairs so fast I almost fell. I locked myself at the bathroom and called 911 while the dad drove back home. And this is the part I'll never forget. While I was hiding in the bathroom, I heard footsteps downstairs, meaning somehow the man had gotten inside. The police arrived maybe 7 minutes later. But those 7 minutes felt like hours. The officers searched the entire house. Nobody was there. No broken windows. No forced entry. Nothing. But one officer found something near the downstairs hallway. The back sliding door lock had been unlocked from the inside. The parents came home completely panicking. And while police were questioning everyone, one of the officers asked the dad something. He asked, "Why didn't you tell her about the attic?" Apparently 2 weeks earlier, the family had discovered somebody had been secretly living in the attic crawl space above the 2nd floor. They thought the person was gone after police searched the house. But they were wrong. The man at the back door was never trying to get in. He was already inside the house. I never tell people this story because honestly, it makes me sound paranoid. But I know what I saw. A couple years ago, I used to drive for food delivery apps at night for extra money. Usually between like 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. One night, I got an order from a Mexican restaurant right before closing. The delivery address was about 20 minutes away in a really quiet suburban neighborhood. Nothing weird at first. I picked up the food, drove over there, and pulled up in front of the house. The place was completely dark. No porch light, no lights inside, which already annoyed me because I hate delivering to dark houses at night. I grabbed the food and walked to the front door. That's when I noticed the door was slightly open. Not wide open, just cracked enough to notice. And I immediately got this horrible feeling. I knocked anyway. No answer. Then, from inside the house, I heard a man's voice say, "Come in," very casually, like he was expecting me. I froze, because delivery instructions never said to enter the house, so I just stood there and said, "Delivery for Marcus?" No response. Then a few seconds later, and the same voice said, "The door's open." At this point, I already knew I wasn't going inside. I set the food down near the entrance and took a step back. And that's when I noticed something that genuinely made my skin crawl. There were no sounds inside the house. No TV. No footsteps. Nothing. But the voice sounded close. Too close. Like the person was standing right behind the door, just out of sight. I started walking back toward my car, and right as I reached the driveway, I heard the front door slowly creak open wider behind me. Not slam, not suddenly, just slowly. I turned around for a second, and I could barely make out a figure standing inside the darkness. I couldn't see his face, but I could see he wasn't moving. At all. Then he said, "You forgot your tip." I didn't answer. I got in my car immediately and locked the doors. And this is the part that still freaks me out. As I started backing out, my headlights lit up the second floor window, and there was another person standing upstairs, watching me, completely still. I drove off and called the app support line because the entire thing felt wrong. The support lady sounded uncomfortable immediately after I gave her the address. Then she asked me, "Did you go inside the house?" I said no, and she literally went quiet for a second before saying, "Okay, good." Apparently, multiple drivers had already reported creepy behavior from that same address. One claimed somebody tried convincing her to come inside because it was raining. Another said the people inside kept pretending they couldn't hear him unless he stepped into the house. The account got banned eventually. But like 6 months later, I saw the same address pop up again under a different name, and I declined it so fast I almost dropped my phone. I experienced this last summer. Me and one of my friends were on a road trip across a couple states, and by the time it got late, we were way too exhausted to keep driving. So we stopped at this really cheap motel off the highway. It was one of those old roadside motels where all the room doors face the parking lot directly. The place already felt off. Not haunted or anything, just dirty, quiet, weirdly empty. There was this middle-aged guy at the front desk who kept staring at our IDs for way too long, especially mine. Then before handing us the key, he said, "Don't open your door for anyone tonight." He said it so casually that at first we laughed about it. Like, okay, creepy motel guy. We got to the room, ordered food, watched TV for a bit, and eventually started getting ready to sleep. Around 1 a.m., someone knocked on the door. 3 slow knocks. Tock, tock, tock. My friend looked through the peephole. Then she turned back and said, "There's nobody there." That immediately made me uncomfortable, because the parking lot was completely open. There's no way someone could knock and disappear that fast. We tried to brush it off, but maybe 20 minutes later, it happened again. This time louder. Bang, bang, bang. My friend got annoyed and opened the door immediately. Nobody. But right near the door frame, there was a folded napkin on the ground. She picked it up. and I swear her face changed instantly. She handed it to me. Written in blue ink were the words, "The girl in room 8 is alone now. We were staying in room 8. And my friend had been standing outside the room when she picked up the note." Meaning, technically, I was alone inside. At that point, we locked the door, turned every light on, and started seriously debating calling the police. But what were we even supposed to say? Somebody left a creepy note? Then about 10 minutes later, we started hearing footsteps outside. Slow footsteps. Back and forth, like someone was pacing directly in front of our room. Sometimes the steps would stop completely for a few seconds, then continue again. This went on for almost 40 minutes. No voices, no knocking, just footsteps. Finally, I grabbed my phone and said we were calling 911. And right then, the footsteps stopped. Complete silence. Then a man's voice spoke from right outside the door. Calm, almost amused, he said, "Wrong room." That was it. No footsteps after that. Nothing. The second the sun came up, we packed our stuff and left. Before leaving, we told the front desk worker everything. And the weirdest part is, he didn't even look surprised. He just stared at us for a second and sighed. Then he said, "You're not the first girls who've complained about that." I asked him what he meant, and he said something I still think about constantly. He said, "Most people open the door the first time.